Noah stared out of the window, watching the rain drizzle down the glass in thin streams. The sound of droplets tapping against the pane was a familiar comfort, yet today it felt heavy, like the weight of change pressing down on him. His mother had married Julian just a few weeks ago, and while he wanted to be happy for her, he couldn't shake off the feeling of unease that had settled in his chest. Julian was charming, with a warm smile that could light up a room. He had an easy way about him that made people feel at ease. But Noah couldn't help but feel like an outsider in his own home. The laughter that echoed through the halls felt foreign, and the warmth that Julian brought into their lives only intensified Noah's sense of isolation. As he turned away from the window, Noah caught a glimpse of Julian in the kitchen. He was preparing dinner, humming softly to himself as he chopped vegetables with practiced ease. There was something about the way Julian moved, graceful, confident, that both fascinated and frustrated Noah. He felt torn between admiration and resentment. "Hey, Noah, want to help me with dinner?" Julian called out, his voice bright and inviting. Noah hesitated for a moment. He wanted to say no, to retreat into the sanctuary of his room where he could drown out the world with his music and art. But something in Julian's tone made him pause. With a sigh, he pushed himself off the couch and wandered into the kitchen. "Sure," he mumbled, grabbing a cutting board from the counter. "Great. I'm making your favorite, pasta primavera," Julian said with a smile that seemed to light up his features. "You always loved it when your mom made it." Noah nodded, forcing a smile in return as he began slicing bell peppers. The kitchen filled with the aroma of fresh herbs and garlic, creating an inviting atmosphere that contrasted sharply with Noah's inner turmoil. As they worked side by side, Julian shared stories about his childhood, how he had spent summers painting landscapes and exploring nature. Noah listened intently, intrigued by Julian's passion for art. He had always found solace in painting too. It was an escape from reality where he could express emotions he often struggled to articulate. "Do you paint?" Julian asked, glancing over at Noah with genuine curiosity. "A little," Noah replied, shrugging as if it were no big deal. "Just for fun. You should show me sometime," Julian encouraged, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "I'd love to see your work." Noah felt a flush of warmth at the compliment but quickly buried it under layers of doubt. What would Julian think? Would he see him as just another kid trying to find his way? Or would he see something more? Dinner was served soon after, and they gathered around the table where Noah's mother joined them with a bright smile. The conversation flowed easily between them as they shared laughter and stories over steaming plates of pasta. Yet amidst the light-hearted banter, Noah felt an invisible barrier separating him from Julian, a wall built on uncertainty and unspoken feelings. Later that night, after his mother had gone to bed, Noah found himself unable to sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thoughts racing through his mind like a whirlwind. He thought about Julian, the way he moved through life with such ease and confidence, and how different their worlds felt. As exhaustion finally began to take hold, Noah drifted into a restless sleep filled with fragmented dreams of colors and shapes blending together into something beautiful yet confusing. In those dreams, Julian appeared not just as a stepfather but as something more, a muse who inspired creativity but also ignited feelings Noah didn't fully understand yet. The sun broke through the clouds the next morning, casting a warm glow over the backyard. Noah stepped outside, drawn by the vibrant colors of the garden his mother had tended to for years. Flowers bloomed in every corner, their petals glistening with dew. It was a perfect day for painting, and Noah felt a flicker of excitement as he grabbed his sketchbook and some supplies. He settled into a cozy spot beneath an old oak tree, its branches stretching out like welcoming arms. As he began to sketch, the world around him faded away, and he lost himself in the flow of creativity. The sound of laughter pulled him from his reverie, and he looked up to see Julian setting up an easel nearby. "Mind if I join you?" Julian asked, his smile bright against the backdrop of nature. Noah hesitated but then nodded. "Sure." As Julian set up his canvas, Noah watched him with curiosity. There was something captivating about how Julian approached art. His movements were fluid and confident. It was as if he spoke a language Noah yearned to understand. "I thought we could paint together," Julian said, mixing colors on his palette. "What do you think?" "Sounds good," Noah replied, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. He had never painted with anyone before. it was always a solitary activity for him. They worked side by side in comfortable silence for a while, each lost in their own world of color and brushstrokes. Julian's painting began to take shape, a vibrant landscape that captured the essence of the garden. Meanwhile, Noah focused on capturing the delicate petals of a nearby flower. "Your technique is impressive," Julian commented, glancing over at Noah's work. "You have a real talent." Noah felt heat rush to his cheeks at the compliment. "Thanks," he mumbled, trying to brush it off as if it were nothing. As they painted, they began to share stories about their lives. Julian spoke about his travels and how art had always been a part of him, while Noah opened up about his struggles with self-doubt and finding his identity as an artist. "I used to be afraid to show my work," Noah admitted, looking down at his canvas. "I always thought it wasn't good enough." Julian paused for a moment before responding. "Art is subjective, Noah. What matters is that you express yourself. Don't let fear hold you back." Noah met Julian's gaze, feeling an unexpected connection in that moment, something deeper than mere encouragement. It was as if Julian understood him in a way no one else ever had. After hours of painting under the sun, they decided to take a break. Sitting on the grass with their canvases propped up beside them, they shared snacks and laughter. The air was filled with an easy camaraderie that felt refreshing yet unfamiliar. "You know," Julian said thoughtfully, "art can be a way to explore emotions we don't always know how to express." Noah nodded slowly, contemplating Julian's words. He had often used painting as an escape but never thought of it as a means of exploring feelings, especially not those he felt toward Julian himself. As they finished their snacks and prepared to pack up for the day, Noah couldn't shake off the sense of longing that had begun to blossom within him. There was something magnetic about Julian that drew him in, a combination of admiration and something more profound that made his heart race. "Let's do this again sometime," Julian said as they cleaned up their supplies. "Yeah," Noah replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'd like that." As they walked back toward the house together, Noah felt a shift in their dynamic, a new layer added to their relationship that both excited and terrified him. He knew this connection was evolving into something more complex than he had ever anticipated. That night, as he lay in bed staring at the ceiling once again, Noah couldn't help but replay the day's events in his mind, the laughter, the shared stories, and especially the moments spent painting side by side with Julian. The boundaries between them were blurring, and with each passing day, he found himself yearning for more than just friendship. The days turned into weeks, and summer began to wane, bringing with it a gentle chill that hinted at the approaching autumn. Noah found himself spending more time with Julian, their bond deepening with each shared moment. They painted together almost every afternoon, exploring different techniques and styles, but it was the conversations that truly captivated Noah. One evening, as they wrapped up a session in the backyard, Julian suggested they take a break and watch the sunset. They settled on the porch steps, the sky ablaze with hues of orange and pink. Noah leaned back against the railing, trying to focus on the beauty of the moment rather than the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside him. "Isn't it amazing how colors can evoke feelings?" Julian mused, gazing at the horizon. "Just like art." Noah nodded, his heart racing. "Yeah, it's like each color tells a story." "What story do you think this sunset tells?" Julian asked, turning to look at Noah, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. Noah took a deep breath, feeling vulnerable under Julian's gaze. "Maybe it's about change," he replied slowly. "How something beautiful can come from endings." Julian smiled softly, his expression thoughtful. "That's profound. Change can be scary but also necessary for growth." As they sat in comfortable silence, Noah felt an overwhelming urge to share more of himself with Julian, his fears, his dreams, and the confusion that had settled in his heart since Julian entered his life. But just as he opened his mouth to speak, sleep overtook him unexpectedly. The next thing he knew, he was drifting in and out of consciousness in a dreamscape where colors danced around him like fireflies. In this dream world, he found himself standing in a gallery filled with his own paintings, each canvas alive with emotion and vibrancy. Among them stood Julian, admiring one of Noah's pieces, a portrait that captured a raw vulnerability he had never shown anyone before. As Noah approached him in the dream, Julian turned to face him, and their eyes locked in an intense moment of understanding. "Why didn't you show me this?" Julian asked softly. "I was afraid," Noah replied, feeling exposed yet liberated in this dream realm. Afraid of what? Julian pressed gently. Afraid you wouldn't understand, Noah confessed. Julian stepped closer, his presence warm and comforting. You don't have to be afraid with me. Just then, Noah felt an electric charge between them, a magnetic pull that drew them closer until their lips were mere inches apart. He could feel the heat radiating from Julian's body as if the world around them faded away. But before their lips could meet, Noah jolted awake in his bed, heart racing and breathless. The remnants of the dream clung to him like morning dew as he tried to process what had just happened. The feelings he had for Julian were becoming harder to ignore, they were blossoming into something undeniable. The next day at breakfast, Noah struggled to keep his thoughts focused on mundane topics as his mother chatted animatedly about her plans for the weekend. All he could think about was Julian, how close they had become and how much he longed for something more than friendship. After breakfast, he found himself wandering into the living room where he spotted Julian sketching on a notepad. The sight of him, concentrated and focused, sent a rush of warmth through Noah's chest. Hey, Noah said softly as he approached. Hey, want to see what I'm working on? Julian looked up with a smile that made Noah's heart skip a beat. Sure, Noah replied, leaning over to catch a glimpse of the sketch. It was a rough outline of their backyard, a beautiful representation of nature that seemed to capture its essence perfectly. It's amazing, Noah said genuinely. You have such talent. Thanks. I'm trying to capture how it feels to be here, Julian replied with a hint of shyness in his voice. Noah felt an urge to express how much being there with Julian meant to him, how every moment spent together felt like an awakening, but words eluded him as they often did when it mattered most. Instead of speaking his heart out loud, he picked up a brush and began painting on a blank canvas nearby. With each stroke, he poured out his emotions, the confusion, the admiration, and the undeniable attraction that had been building between them like an unspoken promise. As they painted side by side once again, Noah felt an electric tension hanging in the air, a palpable awareness that something significant was shifting between them. He could sense that Julian felt it too. Their glances lingered longer than before, and their laughter carried an undertone of something deeper. That night as Noah lay in bed again, sleep eluded him once more. Instead of dreams filled with colors and canvases, his mind replayed moments from the day, the way Julian smiled at him when they shared jokes or how their hands brushed against each other while reaching for paint supplies. Noah realized that he was falling for Julian, not just as a stepfather but as someone who inspired him in ways he never thought possible. As excitement mixed with fear churned within him, he knew that whatever happened next would change everything between them forever. The following week brought a crispness to the air, signaling the full arrival of autumn. The leaves transformed into a mosaic of reds, oranges, and yellows, creating a picturesque backdrop that seemed to inspire creativity in everyone. Noah found himself drawn to the outdoors even more, eager to capture the beauty of the season on canvas. One afternoon, Julian suggested they visit a local art gallery for an exhibition featuring emerging artists. Noah's heart raced at the idea. He loved exploring new art but felt a mix of excitement and anxiety about being seen with Julian in public. They had spent so much time together in their own little world, and now they were stepping into a space where others would observe their dynamic. As they walked through the gallery, Noah felt a sense of awe wash over him. The walls were adorned with vibrant paintings, each telling a story that resonated deeply within him. He glanced at Julian, who seemed completely immersed in the art around them, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Look at this one, Julian said, pointing to a large abstract piece that swirled with colors. It's chaotic yet beautiful. Noah nodded, appreciating how passionately Julian spoke about art. It was moments like these that made him feel closer to Julian, like they were kindred spirits navigating the same creative journey. As they moved from one piece to another, Noah noticed an old friend of Julian's across the room. Hey, I'll be right back, Julian said as he waved and walked over to greet her. Noah stood alone for a moment, feeling slightly out of place as he watched them chat animatedly. The woman was charming and animated, her laughter ringing through the gallery like music. Noah felt a pang of envy as he observed how easily Julian interacted with her, how she seemed to draw out his playful side. When Julian returned, he wore a bright smile that made Noah's heart flutter. That was Sarah. We went to art school together, he explained excitedly. Cool, Noah replied, trying to sound casual even as he felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "Come on, let's check out that installation over there," Julian suggested, leading the way. As they approached the installation, a series of interconnected sculptures, Noah couldn't shake off the feeling of being an outsider in Julian's world. The thought gnawed at him as they discussed the pieces and their meanings. He wanted to be part of Julian's life fully but felt held back by his own insecurities. Just then, Sarah approached them again, her gaze landing on Noah. "So you're the famous artist I've heard so much about," she exclaimed with a playful grin. "Noah's got incredible talent," Julian chimed in, his voice filled with pride. Feeling flustered under their scrutiny, Noah managed a shy smile. "Thanks." Sarah leaned closer to him, her tone teasing. "You should show us your work sometime. I'd love to see what you create." Noah's heart raced at the thought but also sank under the weight of vulnerability it brought. "Maybe," he replied noncommittally. After Sarah wandered off to chat with another guest, Noah turned to Julian. "You didn't have to say that," he said quietly, feeling exposed. "What do you mean?" Julian asked, concern flickering across his face. "I'm not famous or anything," Noah replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just figuring things out." Julian stepped closer, lowering his voice so only Noah could hear. "You're talented and deserve recognition for your work. Don't downplay yourself." Noah met Julian's gaze and felt an overwhelming rush of emotions, admiration mixed with something deeper that made his heart race. But before he could respond, Sarah reappeared with an enthusiastic grin. "Hey, they're serving refreshments outside, why don't we grab some?" she suggested cheerfully. As they made their way outside into the cool evening air, Noah felt an unsettling tension building within him, a mix of longing and frustration as Sarah continued to engage Julian in lively conversation. He tried to focus on enjoying the moment but found himself increasingly aware of how much he wanted to be closer to Julian, physically and emotionally. After grabbing drinks from a nearby table, Sarah excused herself for a moment, leaving Noah and Julian standing together under the twinkling fairy lights strung above them. "Are you okay?" Julian asked softly, concern etched on his features. "Yeah," Noah replied too quickly. It's nice here." Julian studied him for a moment before speaking again. "You know you can talk to me about anything, right?" Noah swallowed hard. This was it, the moment where he could either open up or retreat into himself once more. He took a deep breath and decided to take a leap of faith. "I just feel like, I don't know how to fit into your world sometimes," Noah admitted, his voice trembling slightly. Julian's expression softened as he stepped closer. "You don't have to fit in, you just have to be yourself." Before Noah could respond, Sarah returned with another friend in tow, a tall guy with an easy smile who immediately engaged Julian in conversation. As laughter erupted between them, Noah felt the familiar pang of jealousy wash over him again. He excused himself quietly and stepped away from the group for a moment of solitude. Leaning against the gallery wall outside, he took deep breaths as he tried to calm his racing heart. Why did it feel so complicated? Why did being around Julian make him feel both exhilarated and anxious? Just then, he heard footsteps approaching and turned to find Julian standing beside him, concern etched across his face once more. "Noah, are you sure you're okay?" "I'm fine," Noah replied too quickly again but then sighed deeply. I don't want things to change between us." Julian looked taken aback for a moment before stepping closer once more. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I care about you," Noah confessed finally, feeling vulnerable yet relieved at having spoken those words aloud. Julian's expression shifted from surprise to something softer, something that made Noah's heart race even faster. "You care about me?" Julian asked softly, his voice low and sincere. "Yes," Noah whispered back as their eyes locked in an intense moment filled with unspoken feelings. Just then, Sarah called out from across the yard, breaking their connection and pulling them back into reality. But as she approached them with her new friend in tow, Noah knew that everything had shifted between him and Julian in that fleeting moment, a shift that would change everything moving forward. The crisp autumn air carried a hint of impending change, both in the weather and in Noah's heart. After the gallery outing, he found himself lost in thought, replaying the moment he had confessed his feelings to Julian. The way Julian had looked at him, surprised yet intrigued, had ignited a flicker of hope within Noah. But uncertainty lingered like the chill in the air, making him question what it all meant. Days passed, and Noah tried to focus on his art, but the weight of his emotions was hard to shake. He painted furiously, pouring his feelings onto the canvas in vibrant strokes of color. But no matter how much he created, it felt like something was missing, like he was still holding back a part of himself. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of purple and gold, Noah found himself in the backyard with Julian once again. They had decided to take advantage of the last warm evenings before winter settled in. The air was filled with the scent of fallen leaves and fresh paint as they set up their easels side by side. "Let's paint what we feel tonight," Julian suggested, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "No rules, just pure emotion." Noah nodded, feeling a rush of excitement mixed with apprehension. He wanted to express everything that had been swirling inside him, the longing, the confusion, and most importantly, the undeniable attraction he felt for Julian. As they began to paint, Noah lost himself in the rhythm of brush against canvas. He poured out colors that represented his emotions, deep blues for confusion, fiery reds for passion, and gentle greens for hope. With each stroke, he felt lighter, as if he were shedding layers of doubt. Julian glanced over at Noah's canvas and smiled softly. "I love how you're capturing your feelings. It's beautiful." "Thanks," Noah replied, glancing up at Julian. Their eyes met for a fleeting moment that sent a shiver down Noah's spine. After a while, Julian set down his brush and turned to Noah with a serious expression. "Can we talk?" Noah's heart raced at the tone of Julian's voice. It felt like a pivotal moment was approaching. "Sure," he replied cautiously. Julian took a deep breath as if gathering his thoughts. "I've been thinking about what you said at the gallery, about caring for me." Noah's breath caught in his throat as he braced himself for whatever Julian was about to say next. "I care about you too," Julian continued, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "More than I should." The confession hung between them like an electric charge, igniting Noah's heart with hope and fear all at once. "What do you mean?" he asked softly. "I mean, this is complicated," Julian said, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "You're my stepson now, it shouldn't be this way." "But it is this way," Noah replied urgently, feeling emboldened by Julian's honesty. "I can't help how I feel about you." Julian stepped closer, their proximity sending waves of warmth through Noah's body. "Neither can I," he admitted quietly. For a moment, they stood there in silence, the world around them fading away as they locked eyes. The tension between them crackled like static electricity, an unspoken understanding passing between them. "Maybe we should explore this, whatever it is," Noah suggested hesitantly. "I don't want to hide anymore." Julian looked conflicted but nodded slowly. "I want that too, but we have to be careful." "Why?" Noah asked, feeling frustration bubble up inside him. "Why do we have to hide who we are?" Julian sighed deeply, running a hand along his jawline as if weighing his words carefully. "Because people won't understand," he said finally. "And I don't want to put you in a position where you have to defend our relationship." Noah felt a pang of disappointment but also understood where Julian was coming from. Society often judged relationships that defied convention, they were both aware of that reality. "I get it," Noah replied softly. "But I don't want to pretend anymore." Just then, they were interrupted by laughter coming from inside the house. Noah's mother had returned home with groceries and was chatting animatedly with someone on the phone. "Let's finish our paintings," Julian suggested quickly, stepping back from their charged moment. As they resumed painting under the fading light of dusk, Noah felt a mix of exhilaration and apprehension coursing through him. He wanted to push forward, to explore this connection with Julian, but fear held him back like an anchor weighing him down. They worked in silence for a while longer until Julian finally spoke again. "You know what? Let's not overthink this right now." He flashed a reassuring smile that made Noah's heart flutter again. "Okay," Noah replied with newfound determination. Once they finished their paintings and cleaned up their supplies, they stood side by side admiring each other's work under the dim light of dusk. "This is incredible," Julian said as he studied Noah's piece, a vibrant explosion of colors that captured both turmoil and hope. "I couldn't have done it without you," Noah admitted shyly. As they turned toward each other again, there was an undeniable pull drawing them closer, an unspoken promise lingering in the air between them. In that moment of vulnerability and connection, Noah took a step forward until their faces were mere inches apart. He could feel Julian's warm breath against his skin as their eyes locked once more. "Can I kiss you?" Noah asked breathlessly, heart pounding in anticipation. Julian hesitated for just a heartbeat before nodding slowly, a silent affirmation that sent a rush of excitement through Noah's veins. With that permission hanging between them like a fragile thread, Noah leaned in slowly until their lips met softly, a tentative brush that ignited sparks throughout his entire being. The kiss deepened gradually as they melted into each other, an exploration filled with longing and relief that they were finally embracing what had been brewing beneath the surface for so long. When they finally pulled apart, breathless and wide-eyed with wonder at what had just transpired, both knew that everything had changed forever, their connection now solidified by an undeniable truth that neither could ignore any longer. The days that followed their kiss were a whirlwind of emotions for Noah. Each morning, he woke up with a mix of excitement and anxiety, the memory of that moment with Julian replaying in his mind like a cherished song. They had crossed an invisible line, and now everything felt different, more vibrant, more alive. Noah and Julian navigated their new dynamic with a sense of cautious joy. They continued to paint together, but now there was an undercurrent of intimacy in every shared glance and touch. The world outside faded away as they lost themselves in their art, creating pieces that reflected the depth of their feelings. One crisp Saturday morning, Julian suggested they take a trip to the beach, a place where they could escape the confines of their everyday lives and explore their connection in a more open setting. Noah's heart raced at the thought. The beach had always been a sanctuary for him, and now it felt like the perfect backdrop for this new chapter. As they drove along the coastal highway, the sun glinting off the ocean waves, Noah felt a sense of freedom wash over him. The salty breeze tousled his hair as he glanced over at Julian, who was focused on the road but occasionally stole glances at Noah with a smile that made his heart flutter. When they arrived at the beach, the sound of crashing waves filled the air, and the scent of saltwater enveloped them like a warm embrace. They set up their easels on a secluded stretch of sand, surrounded by dunes and wildflowers swaying gently in the breeze. "Let's capture this moment," Julian said, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Noah nodded, feeling inspired by the beauty around them. As they began to paint, he couldn't help but steal glances at Julian, how the sunlight danced across his skin and how he became completely absorbed in his work. It was mesmerizing. Hours passed as they painted, laughter mingling with the sound of waves crashing against the shore. The world felt expansive and limitless in that moment, just two artists creating something beautiful together. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting golden rays across the water, Noah stepped back from his canvas to admire his work. It was a vibrant depiction of the beach, colors blending seamlessly to reflect both tranquility and passion. "Wow," Julian said as he approached Noah's canvas. "This is incredible." "Thanks," Noah replied shyly, feeling warmth spread through him at Julian's praise. Julian turned to face him, his expression serious yet soft. "You've really captured how I feel about this place." Noah's heart raced at Julian's words. "And how do you feel?" Julian took a step closer, their faces inches apart once again. "Like I can be myself here, with you." The air between them crackled with anticipation as they stood there under the fading light. Noah felt an overwhelming urge to close that distance again, to lose himself in another kiss, but he hesitated. "What if someone sees us?" he whispered, suddenly aware of their surroundings. Julian smiled gently, brushing his fingers against Noah's arm. "Let them see." With those words hanging between them like an invitation, Noah felt a rush of courage swell within him. He leaned in again, capturing Julian's lips with his own, a soft yet passionate kiss that ignited every nerve ending in his body. As they pulled apart breathless once more, Noah felt lighter than air. "I want to be open about us," he confessed quietly. Julian's eyes widened slightly before he nodded slowly. "Me too." They spent the rest of the evening painting under the stars, each brushstroke infused with newfound freedom and love. As darkness enveloped them, they shared stories about their dreams for the future. Noah spoke about wanting to pursue art full-time while Julian shared his aspirations of opening an art studio one day. With every word exchanged under that vast sky filled with stars, Noah felt more connected to Julian than ever before, a bond forged not just through shared experiences but through vulnerability and honesty. Later that night, As they packed up their supplies and prepared to leave the beach behind for now, Noah took one last look at the ocean, the waves shimmering under moonlight, and knew that this day would forever hold a special place in his heart. As they drove home together in comfortable silence, Noah glanced over at Julian, the man who had become so much more than just a stepfather. He was now a partner and muse in every sense of the word. When they finally arrived back home, Noah turned to Julian before stepping out of the car. "Thank you for today," he said sincerely. Julian smiled warmly. "Thank you for being brave enough to embrace this." As they walked inside together hand in hand, a simple gesture that felt monumental, Noah knew that whatever challenges lay ahead would be worth facing as long as they faced them together. In that moment, surrounded by warmth and possibility, Noah realized that love could be found even in unexpected places. It could flourish against all odds if nurtured with honesty and courage. And as he climbed into bed that night with thoughts swirling around him like autumn leaves caught in a gentle breeze, he felt an overwhelming sense of hope for what tomorrow might bring, a new beginning filled with endless possibilities alongside Julian.